Welcome back to another episode. Just a fun song that I am testing out for my intro music to capture the dancing theme that's been in my life in the recent 6-7 months. So I hope you're having an amazing day. And this podcast is, I'm just really excited to do. I'm just excited to podcast in general. And it's been a great day. I just spent the morning with Kara Alwaleba from the Champagne Diet, and it's just always so such a charge and so uplifting. I love her to death. I met her about 3 years ago. Just a little bit of a life update. Met her about 3 years ago when I had this horrible experience with a business coach that really kind of derailed me and kind of derailed my confidence momentarily. And I was just feeling like a lost pup. And she had written a She had written a blog about her journey with fitness and weight loss, and it really resonated with me. And so I responded to her, and then we ended up, she invited me to come to SoulCycle with her, and we went to breakfast. And it was just like an immediate connection. We hit it off and just talked for like 3 hours, and then I went back and did SoulCycle again with her a few months later. And we just had such a great connection. And at the time, Gumball Love was very new, but she took a huge risk on me and shouted me out to her following, which is massive, and got so many people. Maybe you were one of those people that ended up following me as a result. And I'm just so forever grateful for her to see my passion for this whole mission and this whole movement that's being caused by Gumball Love. And so just such a great day, and it's absolutely beautiful. The weather, I think, is finally stabilizing. I don't think we're going to have like cold winter days anymore, knock on wood. Let's hope so. But yes, I'm officially wearing flip-flops or open-toed shoes, sandals. It's like I'm going to be wearing sandals. I don't care. It's happening. So anyway, I hope you're doing great. And I wanted to give you some really powerful examples today about I'm coming up with this new term called "what is his gumball?" because I want you to think about what is the thing that your gumball guy asks you for that you give in to him that makes him happy, but really you lose ultimately. So I'm going to give you some, I'm going to go through a bunch of examples, and I don't know if I have too many written down, but I didn't want it to be so much or too overwhelming. But I always think of Gumball Love relationships in chronological order. And I want to know if you can relate to these. So message me, email me, melissa@gumballlove.com, or you can tweet me at Melissa Ledger, or comment in my most recent Instagram post, wherever you're following on social media, or if it's private and you want a direct message. Most of the action of Gumball Love is done in the direct message. It sounds so like clandestine, but truly most of this journey is so private for most of you. And so I get that, and I spend a ton of time each day responding to each and every message. So please feel free to message me. I will message you back, I promise. All right. So what is his gumball? A lot of you are new to this concept, and basically it's the quick fix and the high or the rush that he gets. And he puts in the quarter, right? So he puts in the quarter to get the gumball. What is the quarter? How does he get you to give him the gumball? So what are some examples? So right in the beginning of a relationship, like say you met somebody, let's say you're actually doing Tinder, no judgment, but let's just say for the sake of the conversation, and he texts you for the first time at like midnight. That's a quarter. Because it's inappropriate. It's not the correct time. It's rude. You could be sleeping. He doesn't know you, but he puts in the quarter. He's like, I wonder if I can get her attention. It's midnight. So if you respond, you gave him the gumball. He put in the quarter. You gave him the gumball. Or if you have a conversation with him and then he's like, hey, you want to meet up tonight? And it's like 11:30, quarter, gumball. Because the purpose of meeting is to fulfill needs, not to get to know you and build a relationship. So these are just a few examples. Okay. So let's say you meet him out. Let's say you do meet him out late. And do any of these actually end up in real relationships? I mean, I'm sure there's some that have. I always say there's no rules because as soon as I say something, then someone's like, oh, my one friend, she met that guy and they hooked up the first night, but they've been married for 75 years. You know, it's like there's always one story, but trust me, it ain't going to happen on Tinder right now. All right. So let's say you meet him out too late. And by the way, if you want to do it, then maybe you don't think of it as the gumball, but you're probably not a follower, or you're not going to be a follower of mine for very long. So it's kind of like you meet somebody and you feel you're having fun with the conversation. This is where this sucks because it's like you're having fun and maybe you did start a conversation late and you both acknowledge it's like, hey, I know it's late, but just want to reach out to you. And then he asks to meet or he says something sexual. And you're like, oh. And you know it's going against what you know you should do. And so you make the decision whether or not to give him the gumball. If he asks for something and you really don't want to give it, but you feel like you have to because you think that you're going to be seen as boring or he's going to lose interest, which he will because he wants the gumball, the quick fix. He wants you to meet up with him. He wants the intensity of that moment. Or if he asks you, what are you wearing? I met a guy, it was like a year and a half ago. We met at this event and it was like a great event. It was super like exciting and we were having a great time. And we exchanged numbers and we met organically. We just ended up standing next to each other and then kind of bonded over this common interest. And it was like, oh, this is great. And then he starts texting and he's like, what are you wearing? And I was like, oh, really? I was so disappointed because, you know, a month down the road, that's a perfectly okay question. If you've gone on multiple dates and you've established a connection and you are, you know, well into the beginning of your relationship, then those conversations can be fun, right? Because there is a mutual respect and you kind of know, you get to know the person's personality and you know what's appropriate. But when someone asks you a question and they really don't know you well enough to gauge how you're going to respond, they take a risk, right? It's like, maybe she'll be offended by this, but he'll go ahead and ask anyway. Or maybe he doesn't even think of it as offensive, which is even more gross. And I was so into him at the time. I was like, I said something like, I don't really go there. I don't really do this kind of conversation. And then he pushed again. And I gently pushed back because I was like, come on, dude, don't go here. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. And I was already inside like, but you know, I in these situations, you don't want to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you asked me that. I'm out of here. You know, you don't need to be that dramatic, but it's like, you're just in the moment kind of like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And so then he pushed a third time and I did finally, I was like, you know, at a different time, maybe this would be more appropriate, but that's not who I am. And he did lose interest, but so did I. You know, he was looking for, and I remember thinking like, wow, you met somebody that had so much in common with you. You were attracted, yet your needs were so simplistic. He was like humping my leg, and he should have been just having a adult conversation, but he decided to go so immature so fast that he lost any opportunity. And it was just like so disappointing. So I didn't give him the gumball. He was putting in the quarter, what are you wearing? What are you wearing? I think I tried to respond with something like, you know, I'm wearing a smock with, you know, sweatpants or something like just something super unattractive. And he just wouldn't get it. It's like, A, his needs were cheap, and B, he wasn't witty enough to pick up on the cues. That's also something where you'll notice these immature guys, they're not intuitive enough to realize they're crossing a line and they're going to miss the whole opportunity. And a lot of times I think that they're doing this because they can get away with it with other girls. And so this movement has to keep going so that all of us collectively, where the guys start to notice, like, dang, this isn't working. And I believe it can happen. I believe that this message is so simplistic that girls all over the world will be like, not giving the gumball, not giving the gumball. Nope, this is a gumball guy. This is a guy that just wants, what are you wearing? Oh, I'm wearing like sexy lingerie. Oh, really? It's like, that's a cheap conversation. It doesn't build a connection. It's the quick fix. And then what happens after that conversation? So whenever you're tempted, ask yourself how you feel at the end of that conversation. Picture it going all the way through the end. And now what? Now, let's say you had phone sex with him or you were sexting. Then when it's done and you wake up the next morning, where do you go with it? How does it feel? Because now there's this sexual conversation that's happened, but you still don't really know each other. So what can happen is it creates an awkwardness, right? Because now it's like, well, we've already gone there, but I don't even know how you take your coffee. And I don't really remember where you're from and where you went to college. You know what I mean? It's like so awkward and so weird. Okay, so here's another example. So let's say this is more like you're in a relationship and he does something to hurt your feelings. Sorry, I'm turning the microphone because I find that if I talk into it like this, it's much clearer. Okay. He does something that hurts your feelings. Like when you get in a fight with a gumball guy, he doesn't like to take ownership or responsibility for it. And so you get in a fight about, let's say, what's an example? Let's say you took him, this has been my theme with gumball guys, where you take him to an event that's important to you and they act up, they get moody, irritable, cause a scene, had it all, because it's not about them. It's about a wedding, a birthday party, a holiday event. Other people are there. Your attention isn't focused on them. So they turn into what I love Olivia Pope calls a bitch baby. They just turn into babies about something. And then they act up and you get in a fight. But the gumball guy does not like to repair damage. He likes to he'll give you silent treatment, which is also kind of putting in a quarter, because silent treatment a lot of times would make me pursue, like, hey, I didn't know what I didn't know, so I would still be trying to repair the damage that even he caused because I wanted to move past it. But it would be very frustrating to me when he wouldn't just say, hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to say that thing or do that thing last night. Like, you need to see that they're sorry for what they did, but they don't say they're sorry. And then there's silent treatment. And then you're sitting there sad because you don't know how to move forward, because it's up to them. It's their responsibility to say sorry. But what I would do is end up saying sorry to them for some reason, and just to try to make it better. So that was me allowing the silent treatment, or allowing the lack of willingness to repair the damage. I would give a gumball to make him feel better about his bad behavior, just to move forward, to get past the fight and to smooth things out, because I would want to restore peace. But what I didn't realize I was doing is, when I was giving the gumball, like, okay, I'm soothing you. So you can think of the gumball as a lot of different things. Sometimes it's soothing him, but it's always giving him attention. The gumball is always, always, always a different flavor of attention. You can color code your gumball guy however you want. Like, I've had girls say, his red gumball is this, his green gumball is this. Like, you can start to identify the different flavors of attention that he will provoke you to give him. And then when he puts the quarter in, that's like the stimulus to the push, the how he provokes you. So, like, another thing is, maybe he's been a real jerk, and you're also expecting him to say he's sorry or do something to explain his behavior. But instead, he'll act really depressed about something. yeah, I know that thing happened. And he'll be like, I'm sorry, but I'm just really sad about blah, blah, blah. And then he distracts you so that you will give him pity or give him attention about this thing that he's sad or depressed about. So now you're giving him a pity gumball for something unrelated because he's avoiding repairing the damage or stepping up and doing whatever he should be doing for you. All right, next example. He dismisses you. I was trying to think of like ways to describe this, but basically what I mean by dismisses, and we all know what this means, but when you're speaking to somebody, and this is anybody, it doesn't have to be just a significant other, but when you know how you're speaking with somebody and it's like you're talking and you're saying something that's important to you, and this is my all-time worst pet peeve, when someone says something and it's completely a different subject, totally disregards what you just said entirely. We're all guilty of this from time to time, but Gumball people will do this on the regular, all the time. And so over time, just as a side note, when these things happen where we concede, we give in, we give the gumball, we see what should happen, but we don't stand up for ourselves, we don't demand it, and even if we do demand it, we get a really bad reaction from them because they're not givers, right? But over time, it's easier to give the gumball. And I still find areas where I'm giving gumballs to people because it's a coping mechanism that we develop as the giver to keep peace, because we don't want to battle these people all the time. And as you follow me and you get more familiar with this content, you will evolve and start to filter these people out because you'll start to see how it's wearing on you. At first, it'll feel like everyone's a gumball person, and then you'll see interactions that are super obvious, and then you'll start to see the subtleties. And the dismissiveness is sometimes a little bit more subtle, where people get distracted and you feel like they're changing the subject, or they don't really acknowledge your opinion. They don't really pay attention to what you're saying. And it doesn't mean that they have to be on, waiting with bated breath on your every word. I mean, I don't think anybody does that on a consistent basis. Everybody's got distractions. And even my best friends I talk to, sometimes they will change the subject because I can just tell it's something that's on their mind. But eventually I know if it's important to me, we'll come back to it. I don't have a feeling that I'm being, I don't feel like they don't care. I just know sometimes that's the flow of the conversation. But these are the things that I've had to actually consciously think about so that I don't get my feelings hurt, but also that I understand when I'm around somebody that is narcissistic or a gumball person. Sometimes they're one and the same. A lot of people ask me, is a gumball person a narcissist? And I say not all the time. I think sometimes people can be attention seeking and a little bit selfish in relationships and not the best partner, but they may not necessarily be a narcissist, because a narcissist has a very specific set of behavior patterns. But I highly recommend that you really research that, because I'm not a therapist, so I don't go deep into that, because people will be like, are you an expert? And I don't consider myself an expert, even though I've obsessively researched it, and there's tons of similarities. So the behaviors of a narcissist will be kind of interchangeable with gumball guys in a lot of ways, but this really isn't about identifying narcissism. It's about identifying a pattern that leads us in, that we can see as the woman, and that how what we are doing in the pattern and what he is doing to lead us in, and why we're attracted to this behavior, why we are willing to accommodate it. And so I'm trying to make you aware of when somebody is sad about something, like in this pity example, our natural instinct is to be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? I'm so sorry that you're sad about this, or you're upset, or you've got this thing going on. But it doesn't make it where you don't have to be sorry for the bad thing that you did. It doesn't make it where you can just ignore your bad behavior. Just because you had a bad day at work doesn't excuse the behavior at the party last night where you were mean to my brother, my sister, my mom, whatever. Like, you still need to be sorry for that and make amends and do the damage. I always like to give this example in a physical sense. Like, if, let's say, he got really upset and he took a baseball bat and he ruined a lamp and a bookcase and a coffee table. And then he walked in and pretended that there wasn't broken glass on the floor. And you would look at him like, are you going to clean it up? And if he just said, I just had a really bad day at work, or I just got this terrible voicemail. It's like, yeah, I know, but there's still glass on the floor. Are you going to clean it up? I mean, it's kind of how we would be. And so then, but what we do is we go get the broom and the dustpan, and we start cleaning up his mess because it needs to be cleaned up. This is when you go apologize to whatever family member, or you reconcile or do damage control. And I don't want to get too much into the specifics of the example, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we do. We pick up the glass, we clean up the mess, and then he comes in and he may dismiss the mess. Be like, I just had to clean up this mess. Oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, because you didn't clean it up. I did the work. I found all the little pieces of glass, and then I swept the big pieces up, and then I had to get the vacuum out and make sure I vacuumed up all the pieces, and then take a flashlight and make sure there's nothing sparkling, to make sure I didn't miss any of the shards of glass. I mean, think of what we do just when glass breaks on the floor, how much work it is to repair that damage and make sure it doesn't cause further damage. And so when he doesn't do any of the repair work, he dismisses it. And then it becomes more and more, quote unquote, your job, your fault, your responsibility. So all of the specifics of that you can focus on, but what I want you to more see is the quarter and the gumball. The quarter is sometimes even in a negative way. Oh, that wasn't that big of a deal. Come on. And then you defending it. Yes, it was. And that fight, he's getting attention there. Even though it's a negative vibe and the conversation isn't pleasant, we're still focusing on him and what he did or didn't do. And there's intensity behind it. And he likes the drama. So sometimes the fight is the gumball. Crazy, right? Another way he will distract is in the middle of something, he will criticize you. Instead of acknowledging the problem, he criticizes you. So in the criticism, the second you defend yourself, you give him the gumball. Because that's the fix he wants. He wants you to focus on you and not on him. So if he digs you a little and you're like, I do not do that. Why do you say that I do that? Boom, gumball. He got it. Gotcha. And now you're defending yourself and the focus is off of him and it's on you. And now he's getting you riled up. I dated gumball guys where they've told me later that they would get kind of a high off of just getting me riled up. They knew how to push my buttons. It's sick, but it would just be kind of like them laughing. Oh, yeah, like I can get her all fired up. Watch this. I'll say this. And then so in narcissistsupport.com, she has a great way she puts this. She says, when you're dealing with a narcissist or with a gumball guy, you go gray rock, meaning you just get completely boring to the guy. And so, and he's like, well, you always do blah, blah, blah. So what I was saying is, you just stay on course. You don't get distracted by you don't let them put in the quarter. It's like, you see the quarter get deposited, but you don't let him continue to twist that knob. You just stay calm and focused. It'll drive him crazy. But I will tell you, depending on what you're dealing with, gumball guy to narcissist to sociopath, somewhere in there, this can be very anger provoking. So I want you to be careful that I want you to really think about if this conversation is necessary, because yes, you can remain calm. Yes, you can stay boring. But if you see somebody that refuses to take responsibility for their actions and they are constantly dismissing you, that's the information that you need. You don't even really need to hear their argument. You just need to see how you are not heard and they're going to dismiss your response, and how you feel doesn't matter. That's the actions and the reactions that I want you to focus on. Other things are compliments. Sometimes you are focused on a story. This a lot of times happens in the beginning of a relationship where you're telling something that's boring to him. And he, instead of really listening and paying attention, will tell you, I'm just so sorry to interrupt you, but you are just so beautiful. I just feel so happy right now. And then you're like, oh my God, me too. I feel so. And then you're giving him the gumball. Then you're focused on him. He's like, the story is boring. I'm going to tell her she's beautiful so she'll stop talking about it and talk about me. So it's just a bait and switch. Put in the quarter, and then you're googly-eyed focused on him. Once you have awareness of this and you start watching for it, when you see it, you'll be like, ooh, sick. It's so gross. It is so freaking gross when you see it. You're like, oh, and then the guy that was cute in front of you that you were attracted to, you see through him like a freshly Windexed window. I don't know, I couldn't think of anything else. But you just see it so clearly. And then his ability to win you over, sweep you off your feet, it's like, this is the thing that Gumball Love gives women that all of the therapy in the world, I feel like, can't teach you. And this is why I'm here every single day teaching this content, because once we can be grossed out by what once was the thing that got us all caught up with the guy and enamored with him, if we can see through it and know exactly what's going on and be grossed out by it, #win. You know what I mean? Like, that is so valuable. And that's what I want you to be able to see, because then the decision is easy. Then you're not like so enamored with him, but you know he's not really treating you that good. You're fully grossed out because you're like, okay, the dude just interrupted me with a compliment. And then they kind of look at you with those eyes. And then you're like, you're not even looking at me. You're not even into me. It's not about me. It's about you. You're not connecting with me as the person. You're just hoping that I'll give you googly eyes. Gross. Then you're like, this isn't even a connection. This is like, what is this? Then you start to get pissed off. You're like, okay, well, this is just like, okay, your cheap thrill that you're getting for the day. I mean, like, then you make the connection. And this is where you start to transition from even being attracted to that kind of a guy. You see it on date 1. You see it in text conversation 1. You see them starting to try to stoke it up. It's almost like in the beginning, they come with their roll of quarters and they're like, ding, 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 and they try to like some of them have very smooth tactics that they use in the beginning. And some guys are much more sophisticated. They actually know how to court a woman like a human. And so they'll appear very normal. But then when you go on the date with them, they're very into themselves. They don't pay attention. They give bad eye contact. There's a lot of signs of like disconnecting when you're talking, because when you're really interested in somebody and they're talking and you're attracted to them, you're like, you're not even thinking about your phone. You're not thinking about your email. You're totally in the moment. You're present because you're so excited and happy to be with them. You're not thinking about anything else. So sometimes I just want you to just keep that in the back of your mind, that when you're dating, just relax and just be I love the phrase, let the spirit of adventure set the tone. Don't feel like you have to go in with like, a spy handbook and look for all the signs, because I think I told this on another podcast when my girlfriends were out. They were like, Melissa, we know which ones are the Gumball guys. And I was like, well, I think they're all Gumball guys right now, the ones we were talking. I was like, but who cares? We're just having fun. We're just out. I don't want to be the detective out here. If I'm having a drink and sometimes, there's fun Gumball guys around and we're just laughing and enjoying the evening and listening to music, who cares? I can't be on the search for the great guy and turn an evening into some kind of a, special operation. It's like whatever happens, and you just enjoy your life, right? So as you're dating, just enjoy the going out. And then as you see the Gumball guy appear before you, be glad. You can sit back and be smug and be like, oh, there it is. And then if you're like me, you can have a little bit of fun with it. When you're out, and you see him going for the Gumball, give him the Gumball and then watch. I've done this, once in a while. I haven't gone on a date with a Gumball guy in so long, but it's sometimes when I'm around a Gumball guy, I'll test it out and give him what I think he wants and then watch his reaction. And it's just so gross. You're just like, oh, you did want the Gumball. It's disgusting. Like when you're around a really big Gumball guy, I wish I could give an example, but too many people know who he is and it would get me in trouble. But how can I explain it without giving too much detail? It's like when you give this guy a Gumball, he just starts laughing and he just loves it so much. And his whole face lights up and he's just giddy. And you're like, oh my God, you're so grossed out. And then I just have to laugh with him like I'm into it. But I'm laughing at the fact that he's just so giddy that people are paying attention to him. People are talking about him. People are giving him a pat on the back or accolades. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is so gross. But then he'll appear so happy and engaged and full of life. But then the second you say, yeah, so something about you or someone else or anything else, like a thing that happened in the news, he's completely disinterested. It's like he totally checks out and you're like, wow. And then you can try it again. So tell me about your blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then he comes alive again. So you can really, and I encourage you to test these things because you're going to start to, those are more extreme examples, of course, that are just really obvious. But sometimes when something's really obvious, you will start to also notice the subtleties that come along with it. And then when the next Gumball person comes in, then you start to notice new subtleties. And then as you get better and better, people have been telling me, man, you are just so perceptive. You just pick up on so many things. That's because that's what I've been doing for the last decade, is watching these subtleties, because I don't want any Gumball people in my life. I only want authentic, real people that are actually connecting, because those are the ones that have actual substance and continuity, and they're not all about themselves. Just like I talked about when I went to lunch with Kara. Kara has this beautiful brand, like the Champagne Diet, and she's so fancy and gorgeous, and this blonde bombshell, and she's got this amazing whole Instagram, and she's written books, and to the outside person, she might seem like, oh yeah, she wears Chanel and blah, 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 blah. But when you meet her, you see that all of this is to help people. When you can sit down face to face with her, there's so much substance. And if she wasn't helping people, she would have no drive for it. It's all for helping other people and building their best life. And there's so much motivation. Because let me tell you, if your motivation is just to look good on Instagram, you're not fun to hang out with, and no one wants to have. Sometimes I could connect with people that have huge followings and pretend that I want them to promote Gumball love, but I can't even do that. It's like, if I'm grossed out by you on Instagram, I don't want you to shout me out on your following, because I don't want to be associated with you or the people that follow you. You know what I mean? It's just like, I have no interest in that. And so those are the kinds of people that you want to, when you want to start surrounding yourself with people like I did with Kara today, where when we sit down for lunch, the conversation is real. And we talked about, it's funny, we've both had a good amount of success in our lives, but we love talking about the struggles and where we feel stuck and how we've overcome certain things. And I said to her, man, did you ever think that the struggle would be like this? The fight through all of these insecurities and just this constant evolution it's fascinating and it's exciting. But we talked about some of the valleys that just kick your ass, for lack of a better term. And then when you come out, you go down in the valley and you come up on a hill and you're like, okay, I feel like I'm good, right? And then another insecurity pops up and you're like, man, I got to deal with that. And so those are the kinds of conversations that build connection, because you can show strength, but you're also showing vulnerability and that you're a human being, and that the struggle is real. And so that is what you want to find in all relationships in your life. So as I'm going through this list, I think I have 2 more here. As I'm going through this list, I'll finish that sentence. These are the things I want you to notice, so that when you're talking to people and they are dismissive, or they do these things that indicate they're not really paying attention, that you don't immediately let it kill your self-esteem. This is also one of the biggest reasons that I deliver this content, because these kinds of people and the way they operate is very damaging to our confidence. So a lot of people are always asking, how can I be more confident? How can I be more confident? And I used to ask the same thing. And people would say things like, fake it till you make it. Well, you might be able to pretend to fake it, but I feel like when you're faking it, people can tell. Because if you have people around you that are constantly tearing you down, you're never going to be able to build the confidence. You have to, but it's one thing to say that. Like people say, surround yourself with great people. Like, well, how do I surround myself? Where do I even begin to find them? Well, the first thing you have to do, it's kind of like saying, going into a garden that's full of weeds. You can't just plant or place beautiful flowers in a bunch of weeds, because it's still not going to look that good. I mean, yeah, you'll be able to see the pretty flowers, but pretty flowers don't typically hang out with a bunch of weeds. So if I want to create a beautiful garden, what's the first thing we do? We get rid of the weeds. They get out the tiller and whatever else, because I'm not a gardener. I can barely keep my houseplants alive. But we get rid of the weeds and we fertilize the ground. I mean, think of all the stuff you do. So if you're into plants, I don't know enough about plants, although I have kept them alive for months now. So maybe I do know something about plants. But you know what I mean? You can't have weeds. Okay, I'll give you an example. I had a couple of plants and I bought this soil, Miracle Grow potting soil. And I watered them and I was gone for about a week. But I watered them all before I went. And then I came home, didn't think anything of it, went to bed, and I woke up and I was like, why are there gnats? There's at least waking up to one gnat landing on my nose, and then another one. I was like, where are these gnats coming from? I went through the trash. I was like, what is going on? Then I went up to one of my plants and I looked in the pot and it was like, oh my God, there were hundreds of gnats everywhere. I literally picked up this pot and took it to the window, because I don't even have a balcony. So I had to set it on the window ledge. And as I put it outside, I just watched all of these gnats just fly out. And then I went to this other plant and I'm like, they're in this one too. So I had to take the plant out and take away the soil. The gnats are flying everywhere, and I had to get rid of all the soil because, by the way, just longer story longer, as my friend Stacy says, longer story longer, the soil had been contaminated. I looked it up, and this had been a problem. What were they called? They were called some kind of bug. They weren't really gnats, but they were called something, and it was all the soil had been contaminated. So I couldn't just plant pretty flowers in that mess. I had to literally get rid of it. Oh, and then I had some of the soil in my closet, and it was full of them. And even the soil I hadn't even put in a pot yet. So I had to get rid of all of it and take the plants down to the bare roots, and then put them in and get new soil and repot them in fresh dirt. And then it was okay. And those gnats, God, they were here for 2 weeks. I kept finding 1 or 2 or 3. It was like it felt like I could never get rid of them. But the point of the story is I couldn't just put pretty flowers next to the plant and solve the problem. I had to remove the bad soil and any weeds or anything else that was growing around it so that I could start fresh. And so if we want to build confidence and we want better people around us, we have to eliminate the people that are acting like this, that are doing these things, and so that we don't get used to it. Because let's say somebody close to you, like your boss, your mom or dad, brother, sister, best friend, does this stuff all the time. You're used to it. So you're living with the gnats and you've kind of gotten used to a certain amount and you don't mind swatting them away. But if you never dealt with that behavior and then all of a sudden there's a gnat flying around, somebody does something dismissive, rude, hurtful, it's so much more dramatic. Like when I woke up and there was a gnat in my bedroom, I was like, ugh, why is there a bug in here? I was just mad at a bug. But then there were lots of bugs. It was like, it became my number one priority in life to get rid of these bugs. And so I'm using this example so that you can think of like, who are the gnats in my, who's irritating me? Who's constantly like, I go to them, I try to talk about stuff, and it's just like, it feels like it doesn't really land, or I can't really be heard. And it's not even like you need a lot of help with something, but it just feels like there's not anything on the other side. You know what I mean? So who are those people in your life? And then a couple more signs I want to give you. Sorry, I just like changed thought processes because I looked at the time. It's like 40 minutes. I don't want to go too much longer. One of the biggest things that I cannot stand, oh my God, I can't stand this, is when you text a guy something and he ignores what you said, but then he says something and expects you to answer. What is that? It's like your comment, question, statement, whatever, is dismissed. And then his comment, statement, or question should be immediately answered. And Gumball people, they follow up on that stuff. They're like, hey, you didn't answer that question, or what do you think, or do you like it, or what do you think of? They're like, why aren't you answering me? And then you're like, well, you didn't answer me on this thing. And then they go quiet because they're not interested in that. And they don't feel that, oh, I'm sorry. I should have responded to that. No, they just get dismissive again, which is, that's what chips away at, because it makes you start to ask the questions like, was that a stupid text? Is that too personal? Have you ever sent something like that? They dismiss it. They ask something else and it gets ignored. And then you say, did I hurt your feelings? Was that too much? Was that too personal? I'm sorry. We start apologizing. And what are you apologizing for? And then they're like, no, it's fine. Okay, then why aren't you responding? And like I said, if this happens every once in a while, it's no big deal. But when it goes on all the time, you start to question what you can say to this person. And when you're attracted to them and you really want to be with them and the sun rises and sets with their every word, practically, when these things happen, it just becomes like your obsession. And then you're sitting there paralyzed with your thumbs on your phone, like, should I text this? Then you hit send and you're like, was that not good? That was too much, not enough. Because they are ultimately focused on themselves and they aren't focused on building connections. And if you look at their life, they probably don't have very many connections as it is. So that there again, we can't expect people that don't have very many friends to be really good friends to us. And that's the underlying thing. I'll say it a million times, that's really what we're looking for when we're dating, is the common respect that we get from friendship. That's the foundation of these relationships. Okay, what was the other one? Other examples are like really simple but silly ones. Like they just won't watch what you want to watch on TV. or a Netflix, or they won't take an interest in something that you're interested in when he wants you to watch like Ultimate Fighting. And it's like, okay, I'll watch, if you're really into Ultimate Fighting, I don't think I've ever watched it in my life, but if I was dating a guy that was like super into it and he got really excited, I would get into it. But then if it's like, hey, I want to watch the Scandal finale, and he acts like he'd rather have his toenails pulled off than just sit there for an hour and enjoy a show with me, that's also, it's like, those are the things that if that regularly gets dismissed and they refuse to participate in the things that you enjoy, this is just, you know what, you guys, it's so easy for regular couples. Like when I sit down with couples that I know and I say these things, the guys that are good guys, they just stare at me sometimes. They're like, wow, guys really do this? Like, why wouldn't they just watch the show? Why wouldn't they just respond? What's the big deal? Like, they're so confused by Gumball guys. They're just like, wow, I don't get it. And then I always say, man, I wish I could just videotape your face and just show every girl that follows me the absolute perplexed look on your face of just, and the dumbfoundedness that this ridiculous behavior puts on your face. It's like, it's so simple to them because they love their wives, or their girlfriends, and they want to watch the Scandal finale. And she watches the Ultimate Fighting Championship with him, and then they do other stuff, and then they have stuff they do on their own. I mean, it's just so simple when the guy doesn't need attention all the time because they just live life together. And so as I explain all these nuances, it seems like it gets really complicated, and it is very complicated with a Gumball guy. But when you have a normal dude, this is just everyday simple stuff. So one of my last examples is he won't hang with your friends, and he always wants to leave early. Like you invite him out. I was just watching the last 50 Shades of Grey. I finally watched the last movie. I could hardly stand it. It was so, I'm actually going to watch it again because I should have taken notes while I was watching it the first time. But it was, I remember in one of the scenes, she says she wants to meet her best friend. And her friend is like, hey, I want to go out and have a drink. She's like, oh, I can't. I'll get in trouble. I'm like, you can't even go have a drink with your friend? You'll get in trouble? Like he told her to specifically go home, like no drinking. And he had hired a personal bodyguard for her because she was in danger. It was so stupid with the story. But it was like, but then she ended up staying out with her friend. And then he got really mad. So then he said, all of a sudden he said, I'm going to surprise you and take you out of town. And he surprised her with all of her friends in the private jet, and they were going to go on this trip together. But then when they went on the trip, he didn't hang out with the friends. It was just like, funny how this is a movie, but he's still not hanging out with them. She's with her friends, he went with, but he doesn't want to hang out with her unless he has her undivided attention. She gets pregnant in the movie, and I should just do a whole podcast on this. I will, but she gets pregnant in the movie, and he's not worried about being a father. He's worried about her picking the kid over him. I'm worried that the kid's going to get the attention and not me, which Gumball guys totally do this. I've talked to women that have been married to Gumball guys, have had children with them, and they get jealous of the attention that the kid gets. It's ridiculous, but it happens. And I was just amazed. I would love to interview the author and understand how she painted this picture of Christian Grey, because as you probably know, 50 Shades of Grey is a parallel fan fiction story to Twilight. So the movie actually follows, the storyline follows Twilight almost exactly, but just with this different plot. But the story of Bella and Edward is actually the same kind of love story. And if you think about it, you'll see the similarities of Anna and Christian, or Anastasia and Christian. Is it Anastasia? I do think I would know by now. But anyway. So, but yeah, I noticed how, and I was thinking in real life, she would say like, again, after that trip was over, maybe like a couple weeks later, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my friend. And he would be like, well, you just hang out with your friends a couple weeks ago. I flew them out to the house, and, I know that's important to you. That's why I did that. Like he would want a bunch of credit for doing that, but then he wouldn't want her to need to hang out with her friends again. That's how it would really work. I can feel you nodding your head right now because it's like when you've dated these guys, they do one gesture and then they think it's like a blanket for everything else. They don't understand. No, idiot. Friendships are like ongoing. It's like, it's not like a one time a year sort of thing. Like, I want to hang out with them because I like them and I want to know what's going on with them. And I like their company and their personality and their sense of humor. And just, like when you hang out with your friends, you're hanging out with them to be with them. You're not hanging out with them for them to give you attention. But this is the way the Gumball guy works. And this is where it does go into, like, Christian Grey is a sociopath. In real life, that kind of a guy is crazy. He's like the one that turns into a serial killer. Like, that's crazy, crazy, crazy town. But Hollywood romanticizes this, and then we date watered down versions of it, and we think it's okay because Hollywood polished it off and gave us the highlight reel. But the reality of everyday life with a Christian Grey is he's a control freak psycho. And so I have a whole monologue on Christian Grey that I'll give, and because I can watch it from a girl who loves romance perspective, and then I can watch it from the other perspective, and it's just like, it's unbelievable. I can see why it's luring people in, because it would have lured me in maybe 10 years ago. But now I look at it, it's like, I was literally like, it was as if someone else was in my apartment with me, because I was like talking to my dog, like, this is so stupid. I was saying out loud, this is so stupid. And the acting is just, it's so bad. I mean, as much as I hate the whole storyline, God, could they have picked better actors for it? Just anyone who's watched Gossip Girl, would Chuck Bass not have been the perfect Christian Grey or what? I was telling my friend Mandy this, like, come on. Like, he would have been he was the guy in Gossip Girl, Ed Westwick, the actor. He would have been such a perfect, I haven't thought of the perfect female lead that would be opposite Ed Westwick for that role. She actually may have been okay with him, but I don't know, it's like, he's uncomfortable with the role, but it's sort of funny because he's uncomfortable with the role just like Robert Pattinson was. Like, Robert Pattinson hates Twilight. If you're a Twilight fan, Google why Robert Pattinson hates Twilight, or what's his Edward Cullen or something, like why, or no, it's no one hates Twilight more than Robert Pattinson, and he can't stand the character. He can't stand everything it represents. He was always trying to work with the producers to get them to make the character do something different because he was just disgusted by it. And the same is true with the guy that plays Christian Grey. He couldn't stand who this guy was. He was like, this guy is disgusting. And it shows, not that I think Ed Westwick would think he's a great guy, but I just think he has like the darkness about him, but also the likability that would have pulled off the character so much better. So if we're going to go there and we're going to have these ridiculous movies, let's at least cast them correctly. Anyway, so it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch a franchise like that get so big and popular, but then it's just like, it's disappointing. I digress. I hate people that say I digress. I hate when you say things that you hate and then regret them immediately, and it's already recorded on a podcast. Anyway, so I hope these signs helped you to think of these behaviors in a different way. So the main theme of this whole podcast, what is the Gumball? What is he after? What's the quarter? How does he provoke you? And what is the payoff? How are you, because you are giving the Gumball. We can talk about Gumball guys all day long, but the supplier is us. We are the ones giving the high that he's looking for. We are the drug. We're the drug dealer. Could go on a whole rant about that. But seriously, they see it as, she's got the drug I want. How do I get it? How do I get it from her? And so when we start thinking of it that way, then guess what? You get the power. I wish I had the song, I've got the power. Like that, immediately the power shifts to you. And this is where this concept cuts through games, because games only work if there's mystery, right? if I start playing a dating game, and I start doing things to get his attention, if he can see what I'm doing, it's like playing hide and go seek with nothing to hide behind. I'm going to go stand over here. I still see you. There's no mystery. So when there's no mystery and you can see through every game, then what's left? Authentic connection. That's it. If you can't authentically connect, and then I'm not going to be able to have a relationship with you, because when a guy dates you with this knowledge, he's in a room with nothing to hide behind. And trust me, guys can feel that. When they know they have nothing to hide behind, you're no longer going to be exciting for them to pursue. So you may experience some rejection from guys, which you should gladly accept, because they see that there is no game with you. But the nice guy, the normal guy, he isn't ever looking for something to hide behind. He's just showing up authentic, which can seem boring at first because he's not playing a game. So you're like, what's this guy's deal? He doesn't have a deal. He just has a job and family and friends, and he's got interests, and he's just a regular guy. He's not Christian Grey. But actually, Christian Grey is boring. And the guy that actually has a real life and real friends and can actually build connection is the one that's much more interesting and sustainable long term. And that's what I want you to look at it as. These games can create momentary excitement, but if we get too caught up in that, then we are looking for the gumball. That's when it's like, yep, then you become the gumball girl. Eventually, if you get caught up in this gumball guy's world, then you will start to crave the same things, because he will cheapen the whole process, and he'll start to create the illusion that love is all of these little games and stupid little interactions, when really it's so much more. There's so much more of it's a much richer experience when we're pursuing authentic unconditional love. And authentic unconditional love is always friendship. That's it. Pursue friendship, not romance. That is going to be my tagline. I think I just came up with my tagline. Pursue friendship, not romance. Because when you are really attracted to somebody you have an amazing friendship, the romance is endless. Because then it really is about much more deep and meaningful things instead of flowers, compliments, vacations. Just remember this. Romance only has to be manufactured. It always has to be created. But unconditional love and friendship, the romance comes with it. It's included. How about that? It's included. Because when you really care about somebody, then romance just like appears out of nowhere in all these different experiences, because you really have such a admiration and respect for that person, and you're so happy just being with them that the silliest things, the biggest things, the smallest things can become romantic, and they become life experiences, and that's the richness. So don't sell yourself short by pursuing the romance. Don't get too caught up in 50 Shades of Grey, because you're missing the big package. You're missing the best part, because we're looking at the sparkly, shiny thing in the water instead of the treasure that lies beneath. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.